Greetings and welcome back to another episode of the greatest show in the galaxy, the show where I, the curator, discuss my personal favorite show of all time, personal favorite franchise of all time, Doctor Who. And it's another month, another monthly topic. And today, or rather this month, will be all about the history of Doctor Who. No, not the actual history of the show, actual historical events, because I don't know if you knew this. Doctor Who is a show about time travel, and as a result, sometimes notable moments from history sort of come up every once in a while. And here to talk about this with me is a great fan of history in general and a great fan of Doctor Who specifically, my good friend Soda. How are you doing, Mr. Soda of Sector
2614 sector, which is basically Earth, the Earth sector.
Wasn't it what 28?
I thought so too, but I looked it up and it's 2614.
Oh,
yeah. No, I thought so too. For those who don't know, it's Earth
shows sector. What we know.
Yeah, it's Earth sector in the Green Lantern universe.
Cool. And well, if it's not Doctor Who, apparently we don't know details about it.
So apparently. I've been saying lately at work, every time I learn something new, it pushes some old stuff out of my head.
And that's a problem with human minds, isn't it?
Yeah.
Too small, too many things to cram in. It's just it's a bother.
Just thank God I remember the important shit, like pop culture wise.
Yeah. Or walking, breathing, eating, shitting, that sort of a thing.
Yeah. Being confident.
But what I wouldn't give for a Time Lord brain sometimes. Oh, anyways, God. So to start off today's show, first of all, as usual, the birthday section. We got some birthdays today, and I'm gonna be completely honest with you, man. This has been one of the most boring birthday sections to put together ever. Because
really?
For some reason, and we are counting from the 25th. Sorry. The 25th of April, all the way to May 1st. And for some reason, so many significant birthdays of people just skip by this one particular week. It's like several days before the 25th and several days after the 2nd of May. It was crazy. I gotta say, other than one of two of them, I'm not the biggest. Well, I wouldn't say I'm not a big fan, but it took a while. Until I looked at someone and was like, yes, finally, someone to talk about.
Someone I know.
Like, what?
That's someone I know.
No, just someone that was born within this time frame.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it happened once or twice on two different people. But after the first one, I was like satisfied, and we just got a bonus with the second one. So why not we get started? Starting off our first one with the 25th. Mr. Cyril Nuri. I really hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. I apologize if I don't, but he played the mysterious character known as the Shopkeeper in the tail end of the Sarah Jane Adventures. Obviously appeared in the episode Lost in Time and the episode Sky, which introduced obviously the character Sky, Sarah Jane's daughter, which mysteriously disappeared from her funeral service. I wonder what happened there, but yeah, it clearly looked like they were setting this character up to be someone special, someone big within the greater Doctor Who universe. Unfortunately, with the tragic and sudden passing of Liz Sladen, they weren't really able to continue on with those stories. Maybe those stories will be picked up in the newly released Ronnie takes on the world series on Big Finish. But something else I will say about this guy is he also appeared on the show Class as one of the chairmen of the board. So maybe it's the same character. Maybe it's just a coincidence. It's one of those actors that, Doctor Who recycles every once in a while. But it's curious. And obviously, since Class also never really got to finish up their story, which, in my opinion, could have been amazing. We may never know who this character is. Maybe he's just destined to be a mystery, both on screen and off screen. Now, on the 27th, this is the first of the two. that really made me jump out of my seat, and I was like, yes, finally someone for the list. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't even look at the person's credits. I just the name, and I was like, yep, this guy has to be on the list. It's Russell T Davies.
Oh well, naturally,
of course he's gotta be on the list. I mean,
yeah, the savior of who, basically.
Yeah, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for this guy.
Yeah, 100%. If it wasn't for him, I would probably, I probably would have heard of Doctor Who, but I wouldn't have gone into it.
Me neither.
Yeah.
And it's just like the guy not only brought Doctor Who back, he's currently running Doctor Who.
Yes.
So you gotta give him all the credit in the world.
Yeah, I haven't been this excited for Who in a long time. Like I with the last special, The Power of the Doctor, I went in because I was curious to see what was going on, but with him coming back, like I'm actually excited for what's coming up. Like you reignited my passion.
I mean, I kept up with Doctor Who, but I'm sad to say, you and me both. I haven't been this excited for Doctor Who in a very, very long time.
Yeah.
Now, apparently, I don't know what it is, but a lot of people were born on the 27th of April, which is kind of weird for me. So,
which means a lot of their parents got busy on the same day, maybe.
Maybe, I don't know, but yeah. So also on the 27th, hold on, just make sure. Joseph Milson. Well, what are you doing over there?
I'm trying to get the dog on the couch.
Come here. Well, okay, fine. So
I'm listening. Here we
Joseph Milson, of course, as seen in this picture right here. Hey, Bear. He played the character of Alan Jackson, the father of Maria Jackson, in season 1 of the Sarah Jane Adventures. Obviously, those two characters were sort of written out of the show in season 2, but they both came back for 2 guest appearances later in the second season. And also on the 27th, because a lot of people were born that day for some reason, we have Mr. Kevin McNally.
I love him.
Well, why don't you talk about where you love him from first?
Oh, Pirates of the Caribbean, baby.
Who was he in that?
He's Captain Jack's first mate.
Mr. Gibbs?
I'm pretty sure that's Mr. Gibbs.
Are you sure about that?
I'm 90% sure. Give me a second. I'm gonna take a look.
Okay, while you're looking that up, I mean, I'll just mention he played several characters in Doctor Who, namely on television, Hugo Lang in The Twin Dilemma, the controversial Colin Baker debut on Big Finish. What?
Yes, sir, Bob. There he is.
Well, I did not recognize the face. Yep. I apologize.
Yep.
But yeah, on the Big Finish realm, he played a character called Henry in The Death Collectors and Spider's Shadow, a character called Vakras in The End of the Beginning, the final installment of the monthly adventures range, and more recently he was Professor Eustachius Jericho in the Flux series, most notably Village of the Angels, Survivors of the Flux, and The Vanquishers, Jodie Whittaker's final season. Technically he was sort of a companion, but not really, so it is what it is. Take it or leave it. And speaking of people who were sort of companions, but not really. I'm going to be completely honest with you. This guy wasn't even on the website that I normally go to find people with birthdays. I mean, he was just not there. I saw his birthday on Facebook. Samuel Anderson, also known as Danny Pink.
Danny Pink.
Yeah, for some reason, he's just not even mentioned there.
That's weird.
Yeah. So like I said, it's sort of companion, but not really. Yeah. And of course, you can't really talk about Samuel Andrews without talking about Clara Oswald.
Yep.
Jenna Coleman also has her birthday on the 27th.
This one I knew. Yes, this one I knew.
Yeah, so it's weird. Somehow they were both born on the same day, just several years apart from one another.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure Jenna is the last of the 27th. Yep, definitely the last. And so on the 28th, we have Mr. Raymond Cusick. Are you familiar with this guy's work? I guarantee you know of some of his work, at least.
I do not actually know. I do not know him. You're probably right, but I can't place the name.
Okay, he is a designer, a production designer, prop maker of the early Hartnell series. Basically, he's the guy that designed the Daleks.
Oh,
So yeah, so next time someone tries to sell you that BS about Ridley Scott designing the Daleks, no, it was not Ridley Scott. It was this guy.
people are
So
trying to tell you. People tell what? Really, Scott? I never heard that one.
yeah, because Ridley Scott was a prop designer in the BBC around the time Doctor Who was getting made,
Oh,
but I'm
okay.
pretty sure he left before it actually got off the ground, or at least before the Daleks were introduced. So it was this guy, Raymond P. Cusick, is the original creator of the Daleks. And on the 29th, this is a bit interesting. We have a woman by the name of Anita Dobson. Now, she was in Blood of the Daleks, Part 1 and Part 2 on Big Finish, the sort of debut of the new range of Eighth Doctor adventures with Lucy Miller. And she's also credited as sort of a TBA character in episode 1 of Shruti Gatwa's first season. So
Hmm.
we don't know who she's playing yet. We just know she's in it. So
Cool.
I decided to keep that on here just in case, she ends
Yeah.
up being a major villain or something. Maybe she's the master now. I don't know. Who knows? But speaking of the master and the doctor and female characters, on the 1st of May, Miss Joanna Lumley.
Ah, yes. I love
Yes.
it. I love it.
So she was basically the doctor before Jodie Whittaker was the first female blonde doctor in The Curse of Fatal Death.
Oh.
One of these days, I gotta get you to sit down and watch that thing because it's pretty ridiculous you haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
And finally, also on the 1st of May, this is the other one that really made me jump out of my seat and go, finally, someone to talk about the man himself, Sasha Dewan.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he played
Rasputin.
no, not Rasputin. He played Waris Hussein, the first ever director of Doctor Who on An Adventure in Space and Time. Probably gave him a bit of bigger role in that episode, in that special, than he actually had in real life. But you know what? The man deserves it. And also, I mean, he's the master.
Yeah.
The most recent person to take on the role of the master, and he did a really good job at that, in my opinion. So much so, he's getting his own series on Big Finish very, very soon. He also had a couple of other roles on Big Finish, but I mean, the master is probably what he was most remembered for,
Yeah.
and of course, playing Waris Hussein, who he's surprisingly look-alike-ish. Like, they show the picture at the end of the special. It's incredible how much these two look alike. It's amazing. So, you know how all the time in these specials they show you the picture of the actual guy.
I like it when they do that.
And they look nothing like the actor playing them.
Yeah.
Not the case with this guy. So the relatively boring but still wonderful list of people we had today. Thank you all. We quite literally could not do this without you. So let's talk about some history. First of all, before we get started, what do you know of the pure historical stories of Doctor Who?
So I'm not overly familiar with majority of the classics, but I do know that a lot of them happened in Hartnell's time, and the ones that always pop into mind were the Wyatt Earp one.
Okay,
I haven't watched it, but that's one that always comes to mind.
It's a lot of fun. I gotta be honest, it's a lot of fun. Now, when Doctor Who was created, obviously they sort of wanted to have a balance between what they called the pure historical, well, what most people these days call the pure historicals, and these purely sci-fi stories. So much so that when Big Finish started their own new range of First Doctor adventures with David Bradley of the aforementioned Adventure in Space and Time, they pretty much stuck to a sort of formula: a sci-fi episode and a pure historical episode. Now, the actual term, the pure historical, has several meaning to it. Not every episode taking place in the past can be considered a pure historical. Right. It's mainly reserved for the episodes that are just the Doctor and friends in a period in history experiencing certain historical events, notable historical events, I should say, as it is, with no sci-fi elements, no aliens. In fact, the only sci-fi elements in the story is the Doctor and the TARDIS and the
Mhm.
friend, the time travelers. So these are what is known as a pure historicals. In time, there was a secondary splitter group of episodes from that, which basically became known as the pseudo historical episodes, which primarily came about with the introduction of the meddling monk. On its surface, the Time Meddler, his debut episode, seemed like a pure historical episode until you start to notice that there's this guy with anachronistic technology running around, which is later revealed to be of the same species as the Doctor, because the term Time Lord hasn't even been mentioned yet in the Hartnell era, and it just became, it's still a historical story. It just happens to have other aliens in it besides the Doctor and other anachronistic
Gotcha.
stuff
Okay.
in it. So that is what's known as a as a pseudo historical story, and is what the majority of other historical episodes past the 60s became. Almost none of them became a pure historical. Every time they traveled to a historical moment, like, say, the Fire of London in The Visitation, or meeting a young H.G. Wells, there was always an element of sci-fi in it. Case in point, probably the best example of it is the War Games, Patrick Troughton's final episode. So the pure historicals were a product of a bygone era, you might call it that. At some point, the producers and showrunners started to notice that these pure historical stories weren't drawing in as much of a crowd as,
Mhm.
say, the sci-fi stories, and that the pseudo-historical ones, while not pulling as much audience per se as the purely sci-fi episodes, they were gathering a pretty big crowd, and so that sort of replaced the pure historical
Yeah.
stories.
Whereas
Uh,
opposed to now, the historical ones are some of the more popular ones.
but they're not pure historicals; they are
No.
the pseudo historical
Yeah.
ones. Now, and there are also several other episodes after that era that are just the pure characters running around in history with no sci-fi elements happening whatsoever. However, most of them, for the most part, don't actually follow a established, known historical event, like, say, the fires of Pompeii or
Mhm.
the William Shakespeare episode. They're just the Doctor and Friends meeting random people in
Yeah.
history without any notable historical
Well,
events
no, no, no,
happening.
no, 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 no. Isn't the first one? Well, Pompeii is historical.
Oh, really? Does history say that aliens actually crash land underneath the volcano?
No, but the volcano really did erupt and kill an entire town.
Yeah, but was it because of aliens turning people to stone, Mister Soda?
No, but you said it wasn't during a historical event. Technically, it was during a
It's
historical
set
event.
in a historical event,
Okay.
but it, there's actual aliens in it. That's what I meant. In other words,
You're telling this story, or am I?
Okay. Sorry.
so I was going to talk about one of my first favorite episodes, Black Orchid, a Fifth Doctor episode that basically just sees the Fifth Doctor, Adric, Nyssa, and Tegan just go to a party in the 1920s, and just having fun, and there's a sort of mystery there. No really aliens whatsoever. It's just a random family that no one really remembers much about. It's just, it is what it is. There really isn't much of a historical event happening there, but at the same time, there aren't any alien presence in there, much like the very first episode of the show ever, On an Earthly Child
Mhm.
/ 100,000 BC. I mean, it's the Doctor and friends going into prehistoric times and meeting a tribe of cavemen and helping them to create fire, but technically speaking, that's
Yeah.
not a established historical event. Hence, it can't be considered a pure historical, which is why I came up with an alternative name for these such stories. I just call them period pieces.
Yeah.
That's all they really are for me. I mean, there's no aliens in there, but it's also not a notable, famous historical event. Hence, I just call them period pieces as opposed to just a pure historical, because, in my opinion, they are not. Same
Yeah.
thing with the Black Orchid. that I just
It
mentioned.
takes place at a point in history. That's it.
Yeah, they're just taking place in the past, and there's really good, accurate attention to detail as far as the costumes and the architecture and the feel of the period itself. But there ain't a lot of history to be told there. So imagine like using Black Orchid as the template here. Imagine the Agatha Christie episode
Yeah.
without the alien wasp storyline. It's just a regular murder mystery where actually that one also wouldn't count because it actually does deal with an established historical event, which is
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, yeah, because that's they just came up with a reason for that to happen, basically.
okay. So imagine this. Imagine if the Agatha Christie was not anywhere near at all that story.
Yeah.
Just the Donna and a random party in the 1920s. That's basically what Black Orchid was. And I really I highly recommend watching it. It's only 2 episodes. It's one of the rare few 2-episode serials. So it's a pretty easy watch. And in my opinion, one of the best Peter Davison episodes out there. So much so that even Ryko loves that episode and he hates the Fifth Doctor.
Huh.
So it shows you it shows you how good that episode is.
Yeah,
so
no
the
kidding.
first pure historical story we're going to be talking about today is, in my one could say, is arguably the best of the pure historical stories, Marco Polo.
Oh,
How about how about this, Soda? Marco
Polo.
Yep. So now you know what he's famous for.
Yeah.
So yeah, Marco Polo is not only the first pure historical Doctor Who story and the second 7-part serial. Unfortunately, this is where we get to the annoying part of this. It is also the first missing story.
The whole thing?
All 7 episodes are missing.
I would have loved to have seen that.
Stupid BBC.
Yeah.
Obviously they did do a loose cannon reconstruction. I think it might have been one of the first loose cannon reconstruction episodes where they fully utilized the new coloring technology that was developed at the time. It was new at the time, where all the images, as you can see here, were painstakingly painted one by one to add a sort of sense of feel of the costumes and the architecture at the time, what the BBC's budget allowed them at the time. And there was even a sort of presentation and a kind of bookend added to the episode itself with our actor Mark Eden, who played Marco Polo himself. So they sort of added a few extra scenes of just Marco Polo, the older Marco Polo, recounting his memories of some of these events.
Yeah, that is definitely. I wish that's one that sounds like it would have been fun to watch.
Yeah, it's still highly recommended. I mean, it's a really great story. It's just you have to contend with.
Yeah.
Just see, this is all you see. It's a static image. You hear the audio, and there's some explanatory dialogue at the bottom sometimes whenever something happens. But basically, the Doctor and friends land on the Himalayas after a bit of an explosive argument during the 2-part Edge of Destruction episode, where they finally settled the differences and they actually went back to being good friends for the first time in the series. And they just landed on the Himalayas, and they happened to run into Marco Polo on his way to Cathay to meet with the great Kublai Khan. And along the way, they're basically being...
Wait, hold on. So they meet him on the Marco Polo journey?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
That's the one. That's the one. So he's making his journey to Cathay to meet with the legendary Kublai Khan, where he's escorting a young girl named Ping Cho. That's her seeing there on the left. Mm-hmm. She's supposed to reach Cathay and get married to a man who is 44 years old. Because that was the rules back then.
Them was the times.
Them's were the times. And of course, Barbara and Susan somehow managed to convince her to not go with it, because even back in the 1960s, this show was progressive.
Yeah, it really was.
No matter how much people try to hide it. I mean, we talked about Sacha Dhawan. He played the first ever director, a closeted gay Indian man.
Oh, I didn't
Yeah.
know he was closeted. Cool.
Yeah. So next time people try to tell you that Doctor Who only became woke in the last couple of years, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Anyway, so along the way, they make friends with Marco Polo, expertly played by Mark Eden, and they meet this person called Tegana, the warlord, who, shall we say, secretly opposes the rule of Kublai Khan and tries to overthrow him all throughout the episode itself. At some point or another, Marco Polo becomes amazed by the great gift, the great mysteries of the TARDIS itself, and plans to offer it as a present to Kublai Khan, so that Kublai Khan will allow him to return back to Italy, to his hometown, to his home country.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Tagana tries to use his knowledge of what the TARDIS is, the limited knowledge, I should say, to try and murder Kublai Khan. And in the meantime, the Doctor and friends, knowing that they can't really go through the whole journey as it is, they keep trying to go to get back into the TARDIS so they can leave without
Easily
Marco
do.
Polo and Tagana knowing. But the key is in Marco Polo's possession, and he's very reluctant to give it back to the Doctor
Mhm.
for reasons that you need to see in the episode itself. Eventually, and all throughout the 7 parts, it's like a chess game, which is interesting because it actually is a plot point in the episode itself. It's basically a battle of the minds between the Doctor and friends and Warlord Tegana, who's very clearly trying to get them all killed, but he's still in Marco Polo's favor slightly. So Marco Polo is more chooses more to believe Tagana than he does to believe the Doctor and friends, and Tagana basically tries to take these guys out of the way, failing, and he's really displays just a expert display of Doctor Who villainy, like
Mhm.
the really smart human guy who's always several steps ahead of everybody else. And I think the actor is called Darren Nesbitt. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing, but if I got the name wrong, sorry. But he's just, in my opinion, he is the quintessential Doctor Who villain, or rather, the quintessential human Doctor Who villain.
Oh.
Like, he really did set the template, especially since it was that so early in the show's history that he really came into his own, and he did what a good Doctor Who villain should do. So in my opinion, he is, even though he's just a human, he is an S tier villain in my opinion. So hearing about this story for the first time, what have you to say about the story of Marco Polo?
Yeah, like I said, it's one that I wish was around because that sounds like a fun episode. It really does.
Yeah, it really is, and it's unfortunate that the BBC was stupid
Yeah.
and threw a lot of the episodes out. Now, in their defense, and I think this is the only time I will ever come to the BBC's defense, but in their defense, a lot of the missing episodes, which many of them were the pure historical ones, a lot of them I can see why they threw out. Not the case with this one.
How so?
Not the main reason, according to them at least, the main reason they threw a lot of these out is they didn't feel like those episodes had much value anymore.
Okay.
And with a lot of them, both the pure historical ones and the sci-fi ones, I get it. I understand. Just, this is an S tier level episode in my opinion, and it's really a shame that they threw it out. One that I am not sorry that they threw out is the other pure historical episode in that same season, The Reign of Terror, which sees the Doctor and friends. This is actually the season finale. It sees the Doctor and friends travel all the way back to the French Revolution.
Ooh.
And see themselves being captured and being prisoners of the newly appointed what was it, the citizen government of France at the time after they overthrew the monarchy.
I don't know what it was called.
Oh yeah, clearly me neither.
Yeah, after the French Revolution, right?
I just know that in the episode, all the people in charge just call themselves citizens. So yeah, citizen this, citizen that. So along the episode, both Barbara, Susan, and Ian were captured and thrown in prisons in separate cells. They managed to escape. They befriend the people in the resistance, which then turn out to be the people who are against the newly founded People's Government. The Doctor somehow manages to gain a sort of level of authority, as seen with the incredibly ridiculous and pompous getup that he's got here.
I love the image of him in a hat with a feather in it.
Yeah, me too. It's like he shows up at this clothes shop and he's trying to get a change of wardrobe, selling out his clothes to get some new ones, and you don't really see what he eventually wears by the end of it. But when you see him next, he shows up with the most ridiculous clothes you've ever seen as a sort of symbol of authority. Now, eventually, over time, they found out that the people that got them out of prison, they were actually the bad guys, and so they found a way to befriend these sort of good guys in the whole conflict. And Napoleon shows up in the last episode, the 6th episode of the 6-part serial. But really, in my opinion, this is one of those ones where I can totally see why they threw it out. It's boring. I mean, and I'm not just saying that because it's a pure historical, because we've already established I love the Marco Polo episode. It's a great historical episode. So it being a historical episode is not the reason it's boring. It's just, in my opinion, it's boring.
But still, I mean, it would be nice to have it for completionist's sake.
Yeah, for completionist's sake. Now, I do believe there's only 2 episodes that are missing, and I'm pretty sure both of those episodes were reconstructed in animated form. So you might be able to find them on your regular Brit boxes or whatever you watch Doctor Who these days. But just, be in mind, it's not, in my opinion, it's not as much of a must-watch as much as the Marco Polo, although it does have the benefit of being the season finale, and there's some really wholesome moments by the end of the episode with the Doctor and friends in the TARDIS, sort of recapping everything that happened, that they've been through all throughout the season. And I think, once again, just seeing Napoleon there at the end, even though he doesn't have any interactions with the Doctor or friends at all throughout the episode, it's just, it's some bit of historical credibility to the episode.
One of the few men to have come close to conquering the world.
Yeah, pretty much. Do you want? Does anything else you want to add to this episode before we go on to the next one?
I guess no. Other than it would have been nice to have for completionist's sake, but
no, for completionist's sake, because again, it is the season finale. So
yeah.
So the next purely historical episode, and thankfully, thank Zeus, that this one wasn't missing at all. All 4 parts of this serial are completely intact, and you can watch them right now if you so choose. The Romans!
Oh.
Right, so after yet another 2-parter, The Rescue, after rescuing the new character Vicky Pallister from the planet Dido, their first trip lands them somewhere with the TARDIS just landing halfway on the edge of a cliff. And the TARDIS just falls off the edge of a cliff at the end of the episode, which literally makes this a cliffhanger. Where is it? So yeah, I see what you did there, Doctor Who producers. Yeah. I see you. But anyways, once the next episode starts, turns out the Doctor and friends were fine. They were just living out their lives as proper citizens of Rome in some random big house that they just found that was abandoned because the family went away, and so they just walked in and started living there for 2 months.
Squatters.
Yeah, pretty much. So nice going, Doctor. But anyways, after living there for about 2 months, the Doctor decides that he wants to travel to Rome because he wants to see Rome. And Vicky decides to go with him, and Ian and Barbara decide to stay behind in the house by themselves. While they're there, they were attacked by bandits and sold to slavery. And so somehow they both got to Rome on their own without the Doctor and Vicky knowing about it. And throughout the entire episode, the Doctor and Vicky have their own A-plot while Ian and Barbara have their separate B and C plots without either group meaning each other at all.
Hmm.
Throughout the entire serial, the Doctor and Vicky go through the entire episode not knowing that Ian and Barbara were there with them this whole time,
Oh, wow.
and they only meet back up again by the end of the episode 4, where Ian and Barbara get to return to the house first, and then the Doctor and Vicky show up, thinking that they were just there the whole time. So this episode just becomes a sitcom at some point. It's
Nice.
hardly worth the watch, and of course,
Without the
along the
laugh
way,
track.
what?
So without the laugh track, though.
Yeah, without the laugh track, I mean, you can kind of add that in your head. So along the way, the Doctor and Vicky become guests of none other than Caesar Nero.
Ooh, Emperor Nero.
Emperor Caesar Nero. Yeah, we all know what he's famous for, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they become guests of Caesar Nero. Along the way, the Doctor is mistaken for someone called Maximus Petilian, who apparently is a legendary lyre player. You know, lyre, the sort of the harp thing. So good that he even outshines the Emperor himself. And then later, it turns out that the whole lyre player was just a cover up, and in the reality he was actually a Christian spy conspiring to kill Caesar Nero
Oh, wow.
in a plot that, well, famously didn't succeed because, history, but it was a nice, interesting twist to add to the story, that this whole time he was mistaken for this guy who was supposed to be murdering the Caesar Nero. Meanwhile, Barbara was sold as a slave to Caesar Nero's palace, and Caesar Nero
I love the look on her face.
yeah, me too. Caesar Nero kind of had the hots for her, and there are several rather inappropriate scenes where he's just randomly chasing her around the palace.
What a
So,
putz.
yeah, have you seen? I mean, it's Caesar Nero. Come on, did
Yeah.
you expect anything less? Have you ever seen the original Fantasia movie?
When I was
1940?
a kid, yeah.
So there's that scene with the Greek gods when Dionysus starts chasing the female Pegasus.
Yeah.
It's basically that,
Oh,
but
God.
in Doctor Who, he's like, every time he sees Barbara, he's like,
Oh my God, that's so bad.
it's bad in all the best ways. It is glorious. I can't remember the name of the actor, Cyril something, I think, but he sells the part of Caesar Nero incredibly. I mean, it's amazing. It's funny. Like I said, it's a sitcom. It's like, imagine it as a sitcom. There's even this really annoying servant of Caesar Nero called T.G. Linus, who is a mute, but he's really like a overly zealous kiss ass, for lack of a better word. He always tries to please Caesar Nero, and in doing so, he does the exact opposite. He just makes him angry, makes him mad a lot of the times. And Caesar Nero can't stand the guy.
Yeah.
And at this one point where there's a sort of subplot with mixing up poison chalices that the Vicky was meant to give to Caesar Nero himself.
Oh,
Because
okay.
even Nero's wife wanted to get rid of him. And she thought it was fun to give Caesar Nero some poison chalice. And the Doctor, sticking true to you can't change history too much, of course, unless it's him, he saves Nero. He walks out and he's like, Nero, don't drink that. I have reasons to believe that it's been poisoned. And he just leaves him with this poison chalice in his hand. And Nero's like, T.G. Linus, come here. Drink this. And he drinks it and collapses and dies. And he's like, it was poisoned. Yeah, so, like I said, it is incredibly funny. It's very sitcom-ish. And you know how in the Fires of Pompeii, when the 10th Doctor casually mentions to Donna that fire had nothing to do with him?
Yep.
Turns out it kind of did.
Oh.
So yeah, rule 1, let me hear you say it.
The Doctor lies.
Of course. So basically the Doctor kind of gave Nero the idea to burn down Rome. and you can
Huh.
see you can kind of tell from his expression that Nero thought it was a good idea. So it's like, glad I thought of it.
Yeah, no kidding. Sheesh.
So, oh, I love this episode. Is there anything else you want to add about ancient
Uh,
Rome?
you know what? It sounds fun. I always love it when Romans get involved. Romans, Greeks.
Thrill him to the Thor. So should we move on?
Totally.
Okay, so the next purely historical episode is yet again another missing episode. I think episode 1 survives 1 and 3, maybe.
Okay.
But I mean, it's a 4-part episode, so it's still just half of the episode is missing, and it's the Crusades.
Oh, hey, is that Julian Glover? Yes, it is.
Yes, it is Julian Glover, and a very, very early role as playing King Richard the Lionheart.
Huh.
And guess who plays his sister Joanna?
Which one is that on the?
It's
right?
on the right, the one that the Doctor and Vicky are looking at.
It's kind of hard to tell because she's a 3/4 profile.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think of that. Do you want me to tell you?
Of course.
It's Jean Marsh.
Oh, no way.
Yep. A year before she was an official companion in the Daleks' master plan, and I'm pretty sure, I think, she was married to John Pertwee around that time.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah,
Yeah, 1965-ish.
I think so. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's basically one of the stories of the Crusade. It's King Richard and Joanna in the Holy Land, a place I think I'm familiar with, in the ancient city of Jaffa, trying to retrieve some of their soldiers from King Saladin, or as I know him as Salahadin.
Mm.
And once again, because originality, Barbara is sort of taken captive. She's sent to Salahadin along with one of King Richard's men. They sort of send Ian to try and rescue her. Along the way, Ian gets knighted, becomes Sir Ian, the Knight of Jaffa, knighted by King Richard himself. And there's this plot by King Richard to basically hand his sister Joanna to Salahadin's brother Safahadin, and she's having none of it. Along the way, Ian gets captured, of course, and Barbara runs away and gets captured and gets found again by a guy who carries a vengeance against Salahadin's right-hand man, essentially, Elakir. It's an okay story in my opinion, but the fact that half of it is missing really hurts it a lot.
Yeah.
But it's not one of my personal favorite of the pure historical ones.
Yeah, I'm not interested in just it's like seeking out ones that are missing, that have stuff missing. Like that, I'm not going to waste my time.
Not even for Marco Polo?
Well, no, Marco Polo, like, maybe that one. But I mean, like, what I mean is where we've only got half of the episodes. I guess that's more what I meant.
All right.
Yeah, I think that's more what I meant.
But does the story of the Crusades interest you in any way?
I mean, yeah.
This story specifically.
Yeah, no, of course. One, I want to see what Julian Glover was like as a younger actor, because I've never seen anything of him from the 60s. And yeah, the Crusades is such a fascinating time for history that, of course, I would want to see it if it was complete.
Yeah, not a great time for us, but I mean, it is a fascinating
time. That's true, yeah.
And, well, now we're on to one of my least favorite episodes of all time, The Massacre of St. Bartholomew's Eve. First of all, have you ever heard of this historical story?
Can't say I have. Wait.
The St. Bartholomew Eve Massacre? Honestly, I watched it recently as part of my rewatch, and watching it for the third time, this is one of the episodes I wish I could skip, because it's not good. And you know what? Watching it for the third time, I was like, Who did they make this episode for exactly? Like, seriously, it takes place, and once again, we're back in France because someone likes France, apparently.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so it's basically it takes place during a time in the 1800s where there's some great upheaval within the French monarchy, and there's a sort of clash between Huguenots and Protestants, and it sort of results in a giant massacre that resulted in the death of all the French Huguenots around that time. That happened pretty much around the time of uh, Saint Bartholomew's Eve. Yeah, again, who do they make this episode for? I will never understand.
Yeah, none of this. I've never heard of this.
Can you hear me? Because
Yeah, I can hear you.
I don't know what it is. My mic just.
You muted yourself.
I didn't. The mic just turned itself off. It
Yeah.
turned itself back on again.
You're good. I can hear you.
Maybe that's what happens when you talk about this episode for too long.
Maybe.
So, if the plot of the backdrop wasn't enough of a bore for you, the Doctor decides to basically take some time off, goes to visit some German scientist. Which actually, if you read a lot about the guy, that's the guy that basically modernized modern medicine. You know, the term germs, kind of his idea. The name germs. Who would have figured that germs were named after a German guy? Who would have figured?
It was right there the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much said out loud in the episode. But yeah, so he goes off, which in reality, it was just to give William Hartnell some time off because his health situation was getting worse and worse within every passing day. And so this was majorly a Stephen Taylor episode.
Oh, that would explain why you don't like it.
Yeah. In my opinion, he's arguably the most useless character in Doctor Who of all time. Like,
Really? All
one
time?
of my least favorite companions ever. Obviously, I think we all know who my least favorite companion is, but he's up there as one of my least favorites. And here's what I have to say about this episode.
I don't like this thing! And here's what I'm doing with it!
I love that.
So yeah, so basically that's it. So it's mainly a Stephen heavy episode. The Doctor goes missing. He doesn't know where to find him. And the first cliffhanger of the 4-part serial, there's this really bad evil guy that hates all the Huguenots and wants them all killed, called the Abbot of Amboise. Like this really heavily religious figure who just happens to look exactly like the Doctor for some reason. Obviously played by William Hartnell, so they play a dual role, and they sort of try to have a subplot of maybe the Doctor is actually impersonating the Abbot, maybe there's some ulterior motive, and then you find out that no, it was actually just the guy looks exactly like him, and they kill him off in one of the episodes, sort of trying to build some tension. It's like, what if it was actually the Doctor and they killed the Doctor? And then the Doctor turns out fine the next episode, right at the very end, and Stephen just goes back with him in the TARDIS. Along the way, they meet this nice young girl called Anne Chapelet, who the Doctor decides that they can't take with them.
Yeah.
So he just advises her to stay where the massacre is about to take place and just find some place to hide.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, and really the only major part about this episode is that the Doctor and Stephen get into a really heated argument by the end. Stephen leaves the Doctor for all of 5 minutes and leaves the Doctor alone in the TARDIS before this character shows up.
I was going to say the Hartnell Doctor arguing with a companion. You don't say.
Yeah, stop me if you've heard that before. This companion just randomly runs into the TARDIS thinking it's a real police box. She wanted to report on a crime, and she just happens to wander into the TARDIS, which had just had the doors open, right before Steven walks back in trying to escape the authorities, and the Doctor takes off with this new character inside the TARDIS, who reveals that her name is Dodo Chaplet, essentially making her a descendant of Anne Chapelet. So,
Yeah.
she survived the massacre, apparently.
Okay, yeah. I was wondering why this all sounded familiar. Because I read about that. I think it was when we were doing something with past companions before, and I was reading up on them, and this is one that stuck out to me.
Yeah. So really, the only positive I can see about this episode, and it's not even that big of a positive, is it's the introduction of this character, who is another companion I hate. So.
Oh, really? You don't like Dodo?
I did not like Dodo at all.
Hmm.
Like, the Hartnell and her companions are split between horrible and S tier. Like, there is no middle ground, in my opinion.
Wow.
So, yeah. Another religious space massacre in history. Stop me if this sounds familiar. Do you have any interest in seeing this episode at all? And
yes, I do. Just because, like I said, it had stood out to me before, and just to see how the twist happened, where it's revealed that she's a descendant.
Okay.
So that's basically about it. It's just to see it, because, like I said, when I read about it, it sounded interesting. So you never know.
So, full disclosure, all 4 episodes are missing.
Well, shit.
And now moving on from that to a historical episode I absolutely love, who is not a missing episode, The Gunfighters.
The one that I am the most familiar with when you meet Wyatt Earp.
I mean, just look at Steven and Dodo's outfits compared to Wyatt Earp.
Yeah.
And what was the other guy? The sheriff.
Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday.
No, that's not Holiday. What the sheriff? What was his name?
Oh, I don't know. Well, I know what it would be in history. I don't know what it is in the episode.
No, it is historically accurate. But I mean, it's.
Oh shit. Ah, crap. I can picture him in Tombstone and everything. Bean. Sheriff.
While we're talking about this episode, I'll look it up.
I'll do it. No, I can do it while you're waxing poetic about it.
Yeah. So basically, this episode I highly recommend for you, especially to watch, because it's kind of a musical in a way. Almost every scene is escorted by a singing actress narrating most of what's happening, voiced primarily by Linda Barron, who I think we talked about a couple of episodes ago in the birthday section. But yeah, it's basically she's singing the ballad of the Last Chance Saloon. It's also historically the last episode to feature the individual titles for each individual part of the serial. So that's something they're going for it. And I mean, it's basically the story of Tombstone, the Doctor and friends having narrowly escaped the Celestial Toymaker. He takes some of the Toymaker's candies and breaks a tooth with it. I love how he set it up at the end of the Celestial Toymaker.
Masterson? That's the character you're referring to. I don't know how historically accurate that is.
Give me a naked. So yeah, they escape the Toymaker, and the Doctor has this bag of candy, and he eats one of the candies and starts screaming in pain and agony. You start to think, what if the Doctor was poisoned? Well, what if Bat Masterson? That's the name of the character.
Yeah.
So it is historically accurate.
Well, yeah, no, that is a real character. Just I don't remember Bat Masterson featuring into the story of the OK Corral.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's historically I don't think that part's historically accurate.
Well, you know what? Creative liberties, am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Virgil, Wyatt Earp, Warren Earp, and Virgil Earp are all in the story. The Clanton brothers are also there, as well as Doc Holliday, and even Johnny is in the story. So yeah, they escape the Toymaker. He puts some the candy, and you're supposed to think that maybe he was poisoned. Turns out in the next episode, he just has a toothache, and he goes to see a dentist, which just happens to be Doc Holliday of all people.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's basically a pseudo historically accurate version of the the OK Corral,
Hmm.
and yeah, it's got some funny musical numbers in it. It's got, and going back to the massacre for a second, this is how you do a change of identity story properly, where Doc Holliday tries to make everyone think that the Doctor is Doc Holliday, so that the Clinton brothers will shoot him instead. And there's some really funny shenanigans. He kidnaps Dodo at one point. There's a massive shootout. I think even before the OK Corral shootout, and yeah, it's a really fun episode, and I highly recommend it.
Nice.
So we got two more. Would you want to talk about a little bit more about the OK Corral before we move on?
Not really. I mean, like, obviously it's the one I always think of whenever I hear pure historical Doctor Who. I've always wanted to watch it, just haven't got around to it. But yeah, I'm looking. It is when I actually do eventually start watching it again, which will happen. I'm looking forward to getting to there.
Yeah. So once again, all 4 episodes are fully intact. You can watch them at your leisure. No missing episode in sight whatsoever, which is not the case with the next one, which is all again all missing. All 4 episodes in this, I believe, in the season with the most amount of missing episodes. It's the season 4 opener, William Hartnell's penultimate episode, or rather story, The Smugglers. Yeah, so it's basically, I don't even know if that episode should even be considered, because again, part of that, what I said earlier about not pure historical, just period piece. It's basically a pirate story.
Okay.
Where the main villain, Captain Samuel Pike, a character that does not exist in real life, and I looked it up. He's basically someone who splintered off from the famous pirate captain Henry Avery, which the 11th Doctor met in The Curse of Black Spot. So yeah, maybe there's some connection there at some point, but yeah, so he basically just split off from that guy and formed his own band of pirates, and then they hid something on this island. This is also the kind of the first trip in the TARDIS for Ben and Polly, who just randomly were introduced into the Doctor's life at the end of the previous season. It's just like with the Toymaker. It's a really fun way to introduce them after helping the Doctor for the majority of the War Machines, the season 3 finale. Dodo was mostly a no-show in that episode, and the Doctor is standing at the by the end of the by the TARDIS at the end of the episode, waiting for Dodo to come back. Where Ben and Polly come back, walk up to him to tell him that Dodo decided to stay behind and essentially get adopted by one of the people from that episode. And the Doctor's sort of really frustrated and disappointed. He walks back into the TARDIS when Ben and Polly realize that, they actually have a spare key that the Doctor dropped earlier in the episode. So they walk back into the TARDIS to try and give it back to him. And then they close the doors. The TARDIS dematerializes, and that's how the episode ends. No, that's how the season ends.
Really?
And the next episode opens with them in the TARDIS, landing in the middle of this pirate story.
Jeez.
Now, this episode, like I said, all 4 episodes are missing, but it's one of the most notorious episodes for having the surviving clips for it. And actually, it leads me to an interesting story about some of these surviving clips. Is a lot of the surviving clips from the missing episodes are scenes of excessive violence, which were not permitted according to the TV rating systems in Australia. So when those episodes were broadcast in Australian television, I believe it's called the ABC, the Australian Broadcast Network, I think. Don't quote me on that. So the ABC sort of removed these clips from the original broadcast and broadcast the original episodes without them. So then years later, when the BBC was stupid and threw all these episodes out, all that was left was those scenes that were removed by the ABC, the Australian broadcast company. So that's why those clips are the only clips that survived from these missing episodes. So at least you can see scenes of violence in this episode.
Yeah.
It's somehow mixed in with all the missing episode nonsense. Another thing I would say in this episode's favor, if you can even call it a favor, I believe, I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure that it's the first episode to feature a black actor in Doctor Who.
Oh, wow.
The role that the black actor is playing doesn't really do him any favors.
It was of its time. I gotcha.
It was of its time, which is why I highly recommend the follow-up episode, The 10th Planet, William Hartnell's final episode, as well as the debut of The Cybermen,
Mm-hmm.
which once again features a black actor as an astronaut. Yeah, and not just an astronaut, a flight captain. So, yeah, again, Doctor Who was very progressive in its time, even under those conditions.
Yeah.
But,
Except for that one episode.
well, except for several episodes.
Yeah.
Let's not get into that.
Yeah, we'll keep those under the rug.
Let's not get into the talents of Wang Chien or the
Oh God, yeah.
abominable snowman or the planet of the spiders. Yeah, let's not get into any of that. But the last episode we're here to talk about today, the last of the pure historical episodes, and also the debut of the legendary companion character James Robert McCrimmon, the Highlanders.
Aye.
Yeah. So basically, if you're familiar with the story of the Highlanders, you should know what happened in this episode. I am not, besides just watching the episode, so I'm not going to talk about it because I probably do a disservice to it anyway. But basically, the Doctor and friends are being thrown into a massive skirmish between Highlanders and Redcoats, and somehow, a little bit unintentionally, they find themselves on the side of the Highlanders and fighting against the Redcoats. Even though it's a missing episode, again, not one of my personal favorite historicals, but I'd say it's pretty much worth a watch.
Mm.
Some really cool girl power moments in this episode where Polly and another girl in the episode managed to essentially trap and overpower a British Redcoat officer, and they, for lack of a better word, they basically kind of have him at their mercies. So yeah, like I said, really girl power moment.
Nice.
Which it's kind of unfortunate that Polly didn't get a lot of these girl power moments in her time on the show, but when she got a chance to shine, it's incredibly worth a watch, especially this and the Moon Base. But yeah, this is really the second episode to feature Patrick Troughton as the Doctor, where he already right then and there starts to display a lot of the characteristics that the Doctor was famous for, most notably dressing up as a woman to fool people.
Oh my God, I didn't know he did that.
Yep, he did that way before John Pertwee popularized the idea.
I didn't even know Pertwee did that.
Yeah, Pertwee did that a lot. Well,
Wow.
on one notable occasion that I can think of, but yeah, in the episode he pretends to be a German doctor, literally calling himself Dr. Ver, which is German for Doctor Who.
I like that. Okay,
It's
nice.
It's really good. Again, it's the introduction of Jamie. Really good moments with Polly. Oh, Ben also has some good moments where he gets to display some Houdini-like escapism. But yeah, other than those, I think the companions and the Doctor himself really shine in the episode. And other than that, it's more or less a kind of lackluster episode.
Yeah.
But no, it is what it is. Are you familiar with the story of the Highlanders? Is that something that interests you?
Particularly, no.
So yeah, this is the last episode, the last historical episode to be featured in the show. Kind of the end of an era, as it were. The next time that the Doctor traveled to the past, it was once again, like I said, the pseudo historical, which it was in the 1920s or 30s. I can't remember, but it features the debut of the legendary villain, the Great Intelligence. That is a story for another time. So, which of these episodes really stand out to you, Mr. Soda?
Well, Marco Polo, particularly, because I didn't know it existed, but yeah, I really want to see it. And of course, the Gunslingers, because for everything I said. And yeah, probably the latest, the last one we just talked about, the Highlanders, to see the debut of Jamie.
Yeah, just again, reminder, that one is missing.
Fuck. Okay, never mind. Well, I still would want to see it if it was around.
Sure. And I mean, I can point you to places where you can find the missing episodes, but that's really a conversation for off camera.
Yeah.
But yeah, so next week we'll be talking about something that I think you know more about than this: the modern series pseudo historicals.
Yes.
How much are you looking forward to that one?
I'm looking forward to talking about me some Shakespeare and some Van Gogh.
Me too. Me too. So until then, Mr. Soda, where can the good people of the world find you?
You can find me over here in the Northern Entertainment Group. You can find me over on my personal Instagram and Twitter at soda_the_saxman. And coming up at the end of May, me and my buddy Dagan, we're going to be launching our own wrestling YouTube channel. So check that out.
Cool. And you can find me every Monday on this show, The Greatest Show in the Galaxy, every Thursday on Fun with Flag with this wonderful gentleman. You can also find me on my own YouTube channel, 50 Shades of a Geek, where I talk about all kinds of stuff, but mostly I do weekly reviews of Doctor Who episodes from 1963 all the way to 2022, and I'm pretty sure, I just wrapped up season 3 of Doctor Who, so we'll be back in with season 4 in a couple of weeks as they take a little bit of a break to talk about the Peter Cushing movies. I can't wait for those reviews to be uploaded, but also on this channel you can find Have You Seen This with regular guests on the show, Snark, Daniel, and Dave. See, I got it right this time. And also you can find another good friend of this show, Marie Wilson, on her YouTube channel, Alia Morgaine, and at the Star Wars Review.blogspot.com. And another great friend of our channel, the legendary Taco, on his channel, Something to Talk About. Did he just upload something new?
Yeah, he's pretty much just doing shorts at the moment.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
the majority of the channel is mostly inactive, aside from his Pokemon D20 project that he's doing with friends, and mainly some shorts. But there's like 5 years worth of content he managed to somehow upload in just these short span of a year. So I highly recommend watching that if you can. And I think that's about all the plugs we can fit onto this.
Oh, Multiverse of Geekdom.
Oh yes, that's right. Sorry, my bad. Multiverse of Geekdom, our good friend, the late great Ben Rayner, has his own legacy channel with some friends carrying on the torch for him. They do all kinds of really cool and fun stuff over there. There's also Galaxy Geeks channel, Luke's channel, our good friend, Midnight Cinema, A-Town Reviews, and did I miss anything?
Movie Lovers Unite.
Yeah, Movie Lovers Unite with our good friend John D. Gregorio, his name is?
Gregorio, yeah.
Yeah, so go ahead and check out. I forgot to re-upload the image that shows all the channels together, but I'll do that in the next episode. So thank you all for watching, and of course, as always, until the next time, everybody, in the words of Missy herself,
don't forget to like and subscribe.
Goodbye.